So, you want to know how much of a piece of human trash Florida Governor Ron DeSantis is? Well, here are a few things about his hateful agenda. Number one, he wants to ban nearly all abortions. Two, he wants to suppress non-white voters. Three, he wants to sign a slew of anti-LGBTQ plus bills into law. Four, he's calling to imprison Dr. Fauci illegally. Five, refusing to condemn Nazi rallies. Six, attempting to humiliate immigrants. Which is not surprising. And it's not all. He's pushing a new bigoted policy every day, and now he's running to be the next president. And that should not be allowed to happen. We need to keep fighting back against people like him. We need to keep doing that. Also, in the first week of July, the Supreme Court delivered two disastrous decisions, GroffvDejoy and 303 Creative versus Illenis. As was expected, they privileged conservative Christians over everyone else, further harming the court's legitimacy. Well, this Supreme Court never had any legitimacy to begin with, and the rule of law in this nation. The first case involves Gerald Groff, a United States Postal Service employee. And if he gets any backlash over this, it's deserved. Because he's not the victim. He's the victimizer. Who was hired specifically to work evenings, holidays, and weekends. But, claiming religious exemption, he later refused to do his job, skipping Sunday shifts because he refused to work on the Sabbath. Typical religious writer. So he could attend church and watch NASCAR. Now, despite repeated attempts to accommodate his church attendance, it wasn't always possible to find someone else to work in his 4-person post office. And it unfairly put his coworkers in the unfair position of having to pick up the slack. After Groff was disciplined for failing to do the job he himself signed up for, he claimed religious persecution. Predictable. And I'm talking about moth to fire level predictable. And he was sued. And he sued. Also predictable on the moth to fire level. Not surprising, the Supreme Court has always sided with the Christian playing victim, even though the Christian really isn't the victim. While the decision doesn't give religious employees carte blanche in the workplace, it certainly continues this court's recent practice of expanding loopholes, accommodations, and rights for the religious, while shifting more burdens onto atheists, humanists, and the non-religious. And already our community faces discrimination enough in the workplace. A survey of 34,000 non-religious Americans this year, that is 1 in 5, 21.7%, experienced employment discrimination because of them being religious nuns. And as a result of GroffvDejoy, not to mention more cases that are soon to come, the Supreme Court predictably is increasing the likelihood of anti-atheist discrimination. Not surprising. And then on Friday was 303 Creative versus Illenis. An even worse ruling. With the 6-3 decision, the Supreme Court greenlit discrimination in the name of religion. It puts business owners' religious beliefs above the basic human dignity of LGBTQ people. which is pathetic, which is why a political leader's religious beliefs should be a disqualifying factor. And the case involves Lori Smith, a would-be wedding website designer from Colorado, despite the fact that she never actually designed wedding websites. Then asked by a same-sex couple to design a website, nor been sanctioned under Colorado's Anti-Discrimination Act, her case was allowed to proceed. And as bad, it appears that her case is built off a pack of lies. She claimed that a same-sex couple, Stuart and Mike, had requested her services via an inquiry form, yet, as a journalist for the New Republic uncovered, the Stuart in question said he never submitted the inquiry form and was married to a woman at the time. Somebody's using false information in a Supreme Court filing document. And yet those inconvenient facts don't stop her from winning at the Supreme Court. Again, to the religious right, the law is beneath them. That's for the little, according to them, that's for the little people. This 303 creative case was manufactured by the religious right. Not surprising, right? For the express purpose of allowing widespread discrimination against LGBTQ people. Not going to stop there, though. The court's decision cuts a hole into the 1976 case, Runyon v. McRae, which upheld civil rights laws prohibiting racial discrimination. In other words, the Supreme Court is undermining non-discrimination protections of all kinds, including on the basis of race, gender, and religion/non-religion. But the religious right and their puppets in the government, the Supreme Court, don't care. They just want to continue to pursue their Christian nationalist agenda, no matter whom they hurt. And yet the justices will have to deal with one obvious observation. The number of religious nuns in America on the rise. The court, already unpopular among Americans, is experiencing a legitimacy crisis. Well, this Supreme Court has always been a legitimacy crisis. Americans are increasingly questioning why Christian extremists are allowed to make society in their image. Eventually, the justices will have to contend with the growing public outcry for court expansion and reform. It's been said time and again, we can't rely on the Supreme Court to uphold the law. The 6 conservative justices on the court are little more than Christian nationalist politicians in robes who are going to stop at nothing to force their religion on all of us. We have to keep fighting in the courts and invest in state-level policy and legislative work. We have to keep networking. We have to keep stopping the religious right. Doesn't matter if the religious nationalists are Christians, or the religious nationalists are Jews, or the religious nationalists are Muslims, or Buddhists, so on and so forth. And in Colorado, New York, Michigan, and elsewhere, we're already getting victories. To be honest, the court is out of touch and are attacking on equality and constant pandering to Christian nationalism. This should be a wake-up call for all of us, and we need to take action. We can no longer sit idly by. We can never sit idly by. We have to stop the religious nationalists, and we have to stop them now and forever.